Hey YouTube, today I'm going to be taking a look at a new acquisition. Look at that string. This is an Ibanez Talman, I believe it's a 2004. It's a really cool thin body, acoustic-electric, and this sucker is beautiful but super crusty. Oh my goodness. You can just see, I mean, it's missing a string, it's got that gnarly long string. Everything is just super dusty and crusty. There's a big old dust bunny in there, and so this is going to take some cleaning and so forth, but functionally the biggest issue is that it has a rising bridge, and so I'm going to get that bridge glued down and secured again and get this thing cleaned up, and after I do some work on it, see how she sounds. Alright, so as I've gotten into this, the bridge was rising up really badly, and with just a little bit of work that came out, you can see the dowels and everything is fine. All the holes are fine. There's just some separation with, it looks like it was probably somebody tried to glue it back perhaps, but there's a lot of the clear coat, the top coat, that's stuck to this, so presumably they put it on while it was curing and it acted partially as glue. I used my polishing bit on my Dremel to gently deburr all of this and get it nice and flat. Same thing with the back of this so that I can re-glue the bridge back in place. Otherwise, I've been feeling inside it and I don't think it's damaged in any way. It was just a matter of this came out of Florida, and so I'm assuming it's probably some humidity causing some separation, and the strings were pulling up and so forth. So I'm going to get this all nice and smooth here so that we can glue this piece back on. Alright, so I have been very busy with this Talman rebuild this morning and just getting all sorts of different stuff done. For one thing, I changed out the tuners with just a 1-to-1 swap. They're off-brand, but they are Grover style, and I think the gold really makes them pop. I'm going to rebuild the ones that were on it, because Ibanez actually makes some pretty good tuners, and they're actually branded good tuners, but they're going to take some work to clean up. They're really rusty and a little bit beat up, so I didn't really feel like refreshing them for this, and I really like the gold. I think the gold makes the dark wood tones on it pop, and in particular, get the light up in here so you can see this has got a really beautiful quilted paint on the top. Now, this I believe was probably stored in an attic because of the amount of dust bunnies in it. I mean, this thing's dust bunnies have some teeth. They're making me think of the bunny in Monty Python and the Holy Grail, because there's some like gnarly dust bunnies in there. But bit by bit, getting them cleared out. But the back has some cracks. It's nothing. It's just in the lacquer, in the paint coat. But luckily it's not widespread. There's a little bit, I think, just probably from the stress of the pressure of the tuners caused those cracks to develop. The biggest thing that I've been working on is resetting this, and so you've seen already I got it off and got it, was working on sanding it down and getting it nice and smooth. What I discovered is that there is still, even with everything smoothed out and all the old finish removed and so forth, there was still a little bit of a rise. And basically what was just happening is, from the years of sitting under pressure with the strings pulling this way, it's caused just the tiniest bit of rise right there. And basically I could take it down flat, but then I'm removing material, and it does have reinforcement right there, but it's not like you're working with, it's not like a solid body guitar where you have lots of wood to work with. So I really didn't want to reduce the structure any further, and so I got it nice and smooth, and I did a little bit of sanding down just to remove some of the peak where it was at its worst, but mostly I just smoothed it. It still has a bit of a hump, but it was not super bad, and I've got it all glued down. Now I use this Star Bond. I use it on lots and lots of projects, and be very, very careful working with it. I will say that because it's very caustic. It's slippery, so it's not sticky like you expect super glue to be. It's not, you know, it doesn't stick. It slides, which is great for guitar repairs because a lot of times you have cracks in wood, and what you want is that glue to burn down into the crack and seal up those fibers, and it does that exceptionally well. I've repaired necks, bodies, all sorts. I've used it all over the place, and it has yet to fail me. So what I did after is all buffed down. Both sides were nice and smooth, so I could mate it together. It still had the dowels. There was not actually any damage to, and that's the other thing, is I reached inside and I felt all around in there. It wasn't any water damage or anything. I think it's just like, you know, it has some damage from storage, and it's probably been dropped one good time because there's a crack on the bottom lacquer, but there's no significant damage to the guitar. The neck is still mated well. There's no major damage on anything, so it is worth, you know, going through the steps of restoration on it. And I felt in there, and there was no splitting, there's no fracture or anything. It's just a little bit of a bow from where it compressed the top a little bit, because you're talking in very fine increments. But enough that I still didn't want to completely shave it down. So what I did was I mounted it so the top lip is good and secured and glued down. This allowed a little bit of a gap on the bottom, but rather than just leave it, I have filled it in with my wood filler, the plastic wood filler, and you know, I roll it into a little bit. It's basically like working with like a molding caulk, almost like clay. You can work it into little ribbons and little strings basically, and work it in there. And actually a great tool is to work it in with a pick. You know, I was using a medium grade pick I just had sitting there, and it's a great tool to, you know, really work it in there, and that way it will also have that extra bit of support and contact with the wood under it. Now I'm letting it set up right now, but then afterwards, to seal all of that, once it's good and set up and cured, I'm going to come back with some, I've got a dark wood stain that's a polyurethane stain. So it's a stain in the poly, and I'm going to hit it with a little bit of that just so it doesn't stand out. I mean, you could still look at it and see it's been repaired and raised, but it's not going to look like something that shouldn't be there or whatever. Like, you know, it'll just blend in with the finish and aesthetic of it. And even now, I mean, the only way you'd see it is if you're looking up at it, but there is still a distinction in the dark wood, and then you see that light wood filler under it. So I'm gonna, and this also, you know, with using the stain urethane, that will make sure that it's good and sealed, and so it won't erode, it won't wear out over time, and that sort of thing. Won't allow any moisture to get up in there, because basically, you know, it was a combination of the squeezing where the wood was compressing and causing a little rise, and this had been glued down into the hot finish, and so the finish was double bonded to the top of the guitar and the underside of the bridge, and so when it peeled up, it was causing it to fracture and splinter and so forth. So I got all that cleaned off, so now there's a clean pairing between wood to wood, and so it's nice and tight and flush. And you know, after I got it bonded, now, because the other thing is clamping, and you don't want to clamp in the center of a guitar, because this is not, you know, going to take a huge amount of force. You have to be very careful. I mean, you can, but I generally I'll clamp like you see up here. I've got the nut clamped, same stuff, that Star Bond I used, and it's just used small amounts. It's very, very powerful stuff, and it's very slippery. If you use too much, it'll drain down whatever you're working on, and if it gets on you, it's no fun at all. Right? Just think in your mind xenomorph blood, molecular acid when you're working with it, and that will get you in the right mindset. Obviously, it's not as terrible as all that, but I think of it in those terms, and I never use it on camera, because when I'm using it, I'm completely focused, and I get it done, and I get it put up, and then it's done. And I keep it very far away from my workspace, so it's not getting knocked over and so forth. So, you know, have rules of how you handle that stuff, because it is very powerful. But one bottle of that will last you hundreds of guitar repairs, because you're working in tiny little drops, tiny little increments. And so already, I mean, this is cleaning up really nice, you know, just getting everything cleaned and oiled, and the head was, oh, so gooey and you know, crusty, and once I got the tuners off, I got to clean all that off and get everything, you know, nice and polished up there. I got the fretboard waxed. Just the layer of grime is, you can see, you know, really extensive. And it's, I mean, this thing was really played a lot. So somebody really, you can see that particularly by the amount of strikes, the light buffing here from play wear, and the, you know, the accumulation of oil in on the spots up here. Anyway, I'm taking all that down, getting it all cleaned up, getting all the frets polished, and I think when everything's said and done, this is going to be a really cool guitar. But it's definitely, you know, this is one that's taken a little more work than typical, but I've had my eye on this style for a while and clipped a really good deal on eBay, and I was like, okay, you know, I can give it the TLC it needs, but TLC it needs quite extensive, but we'll see how it plays once we start to get it back together. All right, so after some restoration efforts, some cleaning up and so forth, at this stage I've got a good acoustic. The electronics are not checking out, it's just producing noise, and so I haven't begun. That'll be the next stage, is to bring this up to an acoustic electric. And I've got some ideas. I've got some thoughts about maybe turning it into a hybrid with maybe like one of those mini double hot rails there, and then putting in a piezo or something. We'll see. I haven't decided exactly what I'm going to do to this, but so far I've got it all cleaned up. I've got the bridge all nice and finished there. Everything is nice and stable now, getting good resonance, good sustain, and you can see I've got the gold tuners, and these are not expensive tuners. They're not great, but they are good enough, and they look nice, and they're holding their tuning decently well. Again, this is a budget restoration. If I wanted to go up to the next level, I'd put some proper Grovers on it. The Grovers are my go-to. If I want premium, I always go Grover with the tuners. It's just, you know, my experience is that they're kind of a gold standard. Now, it was also funny because there was this thing rattling around where a piece of the string tail had fallen in there with the ball end, and apparently it kind of cleaned it out, because as I rattled it and rattled it and rattled it, it collected this horrifying clump of cobwebs, dead bugs, hair, fuzz, dust, and every other kind of detritus that had gotten in there. And I was going to take a picture of it. I was like, oh, it's so gross. I don't even want just went right in the trash. And it's still, I've got to get in there with my long attachment on my vacuum, because it's still got some dust, you know, crust and so forth in there. But in terms of, at this point, as an acoustic build, so it's, you know, turned into a very nice acoustic. Another quick note, I've put electric strings on it. I just used the same D'Addario basic electric strings that I've used, and trying it out. A friend recommended doing that, and I'm not getting any problems. It came strung that way. But the thing to watch out if you're changing gauges is just listening for harmonics harmonics on your nut or saddle, and you know, where the string's rattling in there and it might need filing and that sort of thing. And it's not perfectly intonated because the bridge saddle is set up for the 4x2, but it's not so off. And generally speaking, for me, when I reach for an acoustic, I'm probably primarily going to be playing cowboy chords, either at the top of the neck or with a capo. Generally speaking, my rhythm work tends to be, you know, just first position cowboy chords. I my philosophy on rhythm is that it's not about being fancy, it's about being on time, about getting that depth to the lead and harmony and melody and all that. So not to get into all that right now, but I'm very impressed with some of the things to check. You know, a good acoustic should have very nice harmonics, and these are very easy to ring, and they ring very true. You can hear when it's in tune, there's that little bit of extra edge, because I like the shape of this guitar a lot. It's weird for being an offset, like it's really unusual, but I really like it, and I like the way that it feels on my body, the position of the arm and the horn and the way that it hangs. And I like this guitar enough that I'm going to keep working on it. And like I said, I'm thinking about turning it into a hybrid where you have a passive and an active system that are worked in together. I haven't decided exactly what I'm going to do on that, but the electronics in it are not working, so I'm just going to do my own thing with it. Probably something, you know, is either grounding out or there's a soldering issue or something that, you know, this was stored, probably my guess would be in an attic because of the kind of crust that came out of it. It's, you know, especially like the dead bugs and little cobweb bits and stuff. That says attic more than closet, but wherever it was stored, it was not stored real well. But once I've got it cleaned up and everything, you know, as I said when I was checking out, there is that little bit of rise here, but there's no actual cracking, and there's no soft spots from, like, so it was kept at least dry and out of the way. It wasn't, you know, humidity did not become an issue for it, storage-wise. But, so, you know, acoustics are much more vulnerable to humidity and temperature issues than solid body guitars. That's one of the benefit of a solid body guitar. It still acclimates, and it still has, particularly it's most noticeable in the neck. With acoustic, it can be very problematic if it's stored too dry. The wood will crack and start to kind of wither and deteriorate. And of course, if it's too wet, it gets soft, and you can get mold issues and everything else in it. So at least this was kept, you know, it's not ruined. And acoustically, I really love the way that it sounds. It's in that class of, like, I really genuinely enjoy playing it. The moment I start playing it, I start losing myself into the music. So I put this in the big win category because this is a really cool model. It's an older, like, I don't think they make this exact pattern anymore, and so, you know, it's an earlier model, and but it's really cool, and I really love the sound acoustically. In fact, I'm thinking about playing it this Sunday at the church where I'm going to be preaching, and playing it just purely acoustically, no plug-in or anything. It's a small church, so I can do that without need for amplification, because the acoustic sounds, and even, you know, I get a taste of what it would be like as a hybrid, acoustic-electric hybrid. There's some pentatonic blues, you know, just noodling there. But, you know, I think this has a really great opportunity to even step further into the hybridization and get a passive combined with a piezo, so you can get that double, like a true acoustic sound and a true electric sound, and blending them together. I do have one hybrid that does that. That's a Michael Kelly. It's a kind of a Strat body style, like a hollow Strat style. It's really cool, but it's not big enough to really have the full acoustic sound, and, you know, you don't get that kind of projection out of it. Like this, you can play as an acoustic without amplification, and it's a true acoustic. And you know, I really like the resonance very nice. You can hear how long it's got a very good sustain on it, and the fretboard, very nice. I mean, everything it was really well done. It was just really crusty. It was really dry and this and that, and of course the rising, this, you know. But now that I've got all this established, it's playing great as an acoustic. So the next step, keep an eye out as I continue my journey on this, and I hybridize it. That's the plan. We'll see exactly, you know, I'm going to add some electronics down here, see what I do with it. I haven't decided 100% yet, so stay tuned for that. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate the community and really love to hear back from you guys. So let me know in your comments, what do you think of this guitar? And, you know, do you have any experience with these, or, you know, any thoughts on them? Let me know. Love to hear from you. You have a wonderful day.